Welcome to BeFM Drama. This season we're bringing you brand new radio plays adapted from the 22 forgotten spooky books of Charles Dickens. Today's story is inspired by Dickens's The Poor Relations story. It's about two relatives reliving a lifetime, one rich, one poor, and how their opinions of one another's circumstances and what should have happened differently don't exactly match up. Our story begins in the driver's seat of a new ambulance where Goblin and Fern wait for a call. Please enjoy Relatively Rich.
In the end, people's lives flash before their eyes. When it happens in the back of our ambulance, it's like reliving those lives with them. We hear every detail, and we learn what was important to them. My job is like living 1,000 lives. We experience all of the pain, all of the hardships, and all of the lessons they did in a lifetime in just a few minutes. Seeing the world through someone else's eyes gives you a new outlook. Even if we're only there as a witness, it's hard not to be changed, even a little bit, by what we hear. As we wait for our next call, it's hard to know which call could be the one that does that.
Man, oh man! This new bus they gave us is terrible! No. New is the wrong word. How ancient is this thing? I just can't get comfortable in these seats. All the padding is worn down and there's a spring poking me right in the rear end. And it smells like someone died in here.
It's an ambulance. Many people have died in here.
Just how did we get stuck in this old junker?
23 Dickens, come in.
And listen to the radio. You can barely make out what they're saying.
Come on, 23 Dickens. Come on, pick up. I'm not waiting all day.
Ooh, sounds like someone's in trouble, though.
23 Dickens, did you forget you have a new call sign again?
Oh, that's us.
Sorry, go for 23 Dickens.
You've accepted your destiny. Good for you.
The radio doesn't work very well in this thing.
If you want top-of-the-line equipment, maybe don't drop a tree on your ambulance next time.
You have a job for us or what?
Ooh la la, looks like you have a fancy night ahead of you. Head to Chill Tower on West 42nd, a deluxe apartment in the sky on the 48th floor. But don't get too cozy, you have work to do. 56-year-old male, had cardiac arrest at a dinner party.
We're on our way.
Champagne wishes and caviar dreams.
Chill Tower is the headquarters of the very successful refrigerated truck company. They do business all over the country. Tons of money. The owner lives in the penthouse at the very top. We took a private elevator to the top. It looked like a fancy dinner party. Lots of people in expensive suits sipping wine and milling about as though nothing was wrong. In a side room, there was an older man in shabby clothes lying on the floor, clutching his chest. We needed to get him to the hospital right away. I asked if he had any family. The owner of the building, a man named Richard Chill, spoke up.
Me, I guess. He's my cousin, Mick.
Alright, if you want, you can follow us to the hospital.
My driver's already off for the night. Do you think I could come with you?
No, that's not really how we do it. But I think he could use somebody he's close to right now.
Well, we're not close, but yeah, sure, I'll come.
He followed us to the ambulance to be with his cousin, but for some reason, while we loaded his patient in the back, he got in the front seat. We didn't have time to argue, so we took off. I drove, while Fern took care of the patient in the back. It was silent for a few moments, until Richard decided to tell us his story.
I mean, I love him and all, sure. I guess I just feel sorry for him. We always say he's nobody's enemy but his own. He doesn't try to cause problems. He doesn't really try to do anything. He sponged off my dad and now he sponges off of me. But I feel bad. That's why I keep inviting him to these parties, even though he's so embarrassing. He doesn't know how to talk to anyone. We're all talking about international business mergers and he interrupts to tell us about a cool bug he found in the park. He's like a child. He owns one suit that I think he's been wearing since the 90s and he wears it every time he comes over like that's going to impress anyone. He comes to a party and brings a bag of potato chips. Like, yeah, sure, Chet from work brought a 2001 Bordeaux, but yeah, you bring a bag of potato chip brand potato chips from the 99-cent store. Like I'm gonna put that on at a table with the catering. It's not a potluck tailgate party. I don't even think he realizes how much he lives off of me. I don't want to hurt his pride, so I hire him to babysit my kid Frank, his nephew. It's sad. I think Frank's the only friend he has. But I do feel bad. It's tragic what happened to his mom and dad. They died before I was born, and he came to live with my dad in a mansion upstate. They didn't get along. It was nothing personal. My dad didn't like too many people. He didn't trust anyone. I think at first he thought that Mick might be an heir. The guy never did anything. Just grew up to lounge around the house, eating all the food and napping by the pool. Then I was born, and my dad just kind of gave up on him, I guess. My dad let it go on until one day we had the most awkward family dinner I've ever been to in my life. Mick brought some girl over. I was just in high school. Some woman he met at a bar one night, some penniless gold digger who sat there with dollar signs in her eyes, and Mick stands up and announces they're getting married. My dad flipped out. He was screaming at the top of his lungs what a fool Mick was. Mick said he didn't expect my dad to get so mad. My dad screams, "You didn't expect? When did you ever expect? When did you ever calculate or look forward to anything, you contemptible dog?" Well, Mick was blindsided. But he doesn't know when to back down or when to stick up for himself. He just whispered, "Uncle, such harsh words." My dad goes, "Harsh words? Feathers to pelt such an idiot as you with. Look at the sniveling milksop. Look at the baby. This is the gentleman who people say is nobody's enemy but his own. This is the gentleman who can't say no. This is the gentleman who's going to marry a wife without a penny and who falls into the hands of Jezebels who are speculating on my death. Eat your last under this roof, you feeble wretch, and may it choke you." Harsh, dude.
Just then we heard some coughing coming from the back. The patient, Mick, was starting to come to.
There you are. Hang in there, buddy. We're gonna get you some help.
Mick then told his own story.
I know what they think of me. They remember a time when I had everything they find worth in. But back then I didn't do anything I found worth in. I didn't fit in there. I was so thankful that my Uncle Chill took me in after I lost my mom and dad. I loved them, even if I didn't see them very often. I was mostly raised by maids, nannies, and tutors. He really wanted me to learn business, but I just didn't have the head for it. He told me if I was living under his roof, I was going to make something of myself, and I appreciated the effort. But all those big books full of numbers and formulas and tax codes and business law got my head spinning. Once he was trying to teach me about the expense of employee turnover, and I thought I had a great idea. I asked him why not use that money to pay his workers more so they didn't want to leave. He sent me to my room without dinner. I guess I did my math wrong. I was only 8. I was never asked about business or much of anything else ever again. Since I was schooled at home and we never went out much as a family, I didn't get to meet many other kids. Every once in a while, one of the nannies would take me to the park. I made some friends, invited them back to the house to play. Well, I guess one of them stole Uncle Chill's fancy rare coins, and he got so mad. He said I couldn't have friends over anymore. He said I trusted people too much, that I was no one's enemy but my own. He always seemed to want a yes man, so when he told me, "You don't know how to say no," I thought it was a compliment. I wore it like a badge of honor. He told me I wasn't fit to be a businessman, so I agreed with him. He told me I couldn't have friends, that I couldn't hold down a job. He told me I wasn't fit to be in society, so I agreed with him. I stayed in the house. I did what I was told. But there was one time that I had to disagree. It was when I met Chrissy. I'd gone out one night to the local bar. I didn't know anyone, so I was just out on the floor dancing alone. I was really getting into it. Some people were rolling in their eyes, but I didn't care. I was just having fun. Then I noticed Chrissy. She wasn't rolling her eyes. She was laughing, hysterically. She was almost falling out of her chair. She was smiling. I danced right over there and I asked her what was so funny. She proceeded to tell me. for 15 minutes. She described every move I'd made and how bad it was. I was enraptured. Even if she didn't like it, no one had ever paid that much attention to what I'd done before. She was everything I wasn't. She wasn't a yes woman. She laid out dozens and dozens of no-nos I had done in my bad dancing. Hours passed and we were still talking about anything and everything. Not numbers, not business, but our lives, our loves, our families, our passions. We got kicked out because we were chatting long past closing. She didn't tell me what I couldn't do. She challenged me to see what I could. She introduced me to some business people she knew and encouraged me to build something of my own, separate from Uncle Chill's business. I felt so invigorated that I did something else I thought I'd never do. I asked her to marry me. She said yes. I was so excited to tell Uncle Chill. He thought I'd never amount to anything, never have a family, never lead my own life, that I'd always been mooching off of him. But here it was, my chance. I wasn't mooching off of Chrissy. Her family had no fortune. She came from nothing, just like my family had. I would have to work hard and build a business to care for our family, just like Uncle Chill had worked hard to take care of me. I invited her to dinner and announced the news. I couldn't believe it. Uncle Chill told me to break it off. I couldn't understand why. When I refused, he asked me to leave his home and never return. Then we met Chrissy's mother. She'd been so kind to me and welcomed me to her family. But now things had changed. She learned that Uncle Joe had kicked me out, that I had no place to live, that I had no fortune. She told Chrissy to break it off and told me to leave her house and never return. I headed out on the street, alone, not knowing where to go or what to do. But then, Chrissy ran after me. She said, "My dear Mick, I have given you my heart. I have said that I loved you and I have pledged myself to be your wife. I am as much yours through all changes of good and evil as if we had been married on that day when such words passed between us. Let us keep apart no longer. It is but for me to say that I can live contented upon such means as you have, and I well know you are happy. I say so from my heart. Strive no more alone, let us strive together. My dear Mick, it is not right that I should keep secret from you what you do not suspect, but what distresses my whole life. My mother, without considering that what you have lost for me, and on the assurance of my faith, sets her heart on riches, and urges another suit upon me, to my misery. I cannot bear this, for to bear it is to be untrue to you. I would rather share your struggles than look on. I want no better home than what you can give me. I know that you'll aspire and labor with a higher courage if I am wholly yours, and let it be so when you will." We were married. I got a job in construction. We got a small, rundown old place, but with Chrissy's love, it was all I needed. I knew I didn't have no head for business, but I met many fellow workers who had great ideas about how our work could be done better. They were real unhappy with our employer. His low pay, his long hours, his unsafe conditions. The turnover suffered. The work suffered. I had seen how businesses were run, and I thought maybe I could help. I used my meager wages combined with what little I made selling what few belongings I left Uncle Chill's with to start my own little humble construction business. I knew I didn't have the head for it, so Mr. Spatter, one of the businessmen I'd met, helped me with all the paperwork. My whole construction crew followed me, then more. Their customers followed them to my business. We grew. We got new tools and new trucks. Every day we had more work and hired more workers. We grew and grew. I paid my workers more than any of the other construction companies in town, but somehow we made it work. Then one day Mr. Spatter asked to meet me. He said, "Mick, you're no man's enemy but your own." I thanked him, because I had no desire to be an enemy to anyone. But he explained that that was not always a good thing. "Mick," he said, "you don't know how to say no. And in business, that can be a danger. People can take advantage of that. You give too much and get too little. The business has grown, sure, but it could be much bigger." I explained I had everything I needed. I just wanted to do right by my workers. But Mick explained, you could do so much more for him if you had a real businessman at the helm to protect their interests. I signed a paper that gave him control of the business. And he helped it flourish, giving me more time to spend at home with my wife and our children. It may be a small one-room in a run-down old apartment building called the Castle, but to me, it really is a castle. It's filled with love and joy, and it makes me feel like the richest man alive. When Uncle Chill passed away, I got to tell him about all I'd accomplished and built with my own bare hands. And finally, he whispered in my ear, I'm proud of you. It was something I'd longed for in those old days at the Chill house. May have had bigger rooms, but they were filled with so much more solitude. My poor cousin Richard never did escape that life. He lived his whole life in that old building and inherited it after Uncle Chill was gone. I've taken my nephew under my wing. I took a job as his babysitter to give him the same chances at real life outside those walls as I had. I take him to the park to meet other boys and look at bugs, to have fun, to make friends. I show him the parts of life that you can't find inside that mansion. I guess that's why I still go to Richard's parties, even though I know I don't quite fit in. He's always surrounded by fake friends who try to buy him with expensive gifts instead of kind words. Folks who only want to talk about business. I tell him about the things that are real, the moments of his son's life that are making him into a good man. I'm the only family he has left. I try to be a real friend, but he has such a stubborn way about him that he has trouble accepting it. I guess I just feel sorry for him. Tell my cousin I'm sorry I ruined his party. And I love him.
Those were the last words he ever spoke. Mick didn't make it to the hospital. He had no idea that his cousin Richard could hear every word. I met Richard outside the hospital afterwards.
Wow. I can't believe that story he told.
In the end, people realized what was really important to them. Makes you see that we can all be rich in our own ways.
Well, yeah, but that's not really what happened. Most of it was true, but Chrissy left him as soon as he lost his money. His business partner, Mr. Spatter, stole everything and left him penniless again. He went back into dangerous construction work and got sick, so he couldn't work anymore. My dad, his Uncle Chill, never spoke to him again.
I guess when his life flashed before his eyes, he decided to change a few things. And imagine what could have been.
Even in his wildest dreams, he imagined a beat-up old one-bedroom apartment and modest living. He always did lack ambition.
It's telling, though, that he could have imagined any life that he wanted, but he didn't dream of getting rich because he saw what people did to achieve those goals. He never regretted giving his trust to people. He only wished that they would rise to it. He didn't change a single one of his own actions. In his last moments, he gave everyone who had thrown away his love a second chance. He lived exactly the life he wanted to. He only dreamed of sharing it.
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, let's get back to the junk bus and get out of here.
We may not have the means that everyone else has, but we can do our best to use what we have to help people.
Oh, you're doing that thing again, where you figure out a little moral from every call we get. We do this like 10 times a night. You can't expect me to learn something every single time. It's exhausting.
Pipe down. Let's get back to work.
Thank you for listening to BeFM Drama. This was Relatively Rich, based on The Poor Relations story by Charles Dickens. This radio play was written by me, Ryan Estrada. It starred Sam Hazelton as Goblin, Kelly Brassbridge as Fern, me as Richard Chill and Mick, and Peter Starr Northrup as Dispatch. Goblin's theme is by Unheard Music Concepts. Hidden Agenda, Hard Boiled, On the Cool Side, In Your Arms, Windswept, and Cryptic Sorrow are by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech and released under a Creative Commons Attribution License. Tune in next time for another Goblin story, The Traveler, based on Dickens's The Child Story. It's another short story from the same 1853 anthology as this one, A Round of Stories by the Christmas Fire. In it, an old man relives his entire life over the course of the last bedtime story he will ever tell. Thank you for listening to BeFM Drama.